The first time I saw Mark, I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Not the scary, destructive kind, but the kind that illuminates a dark sky and makes you believe in magic. He was leaning against the doorframe of that cramped downtown bar, a half smile on his face as if he'd been waiting just for me. Our eyes met, and the entire noisy room just faded into a dull hum. It was that potent, cliched magic, and I, a pragmatic architect who trusted blueprints more than butterflies, fell for it completely. For 2 years, I built my world around him. My life became an extension of ours. We talked about everything, from the profound meaning of existentialism to the mundane brand of coffee we preferred. He knew about my father's abandonment, my deepest insecurity that whispered I was inherently unlovable. I knew about his struggles to make his art gallery profitable, his fear of ending up a failure like his uncle. We were a fortress, or so I thought. I helped him design the layout for his gallery, used my connections to get him featured in local magazines, and even lent him a significant chunk of my savings to cover a cash flow gap. "It's ours," he'd always say, kissing my forehead. "Everything I have is yours." The crack appeared subtly, a hairline fracture in what I believed was marble. He started working later. His phone, once left casually on the coffee table, now lived in his pocket. The password changed. He called it a security upgrade after a phishing attempt at the gallery. My gut, that ancient and often ignored organ, clenched into a tight fist. But love is a master of rationalization. I convinced myself he was stressed, that the upcoming solo exhibition for a new artist, a stunning and impossibly young sculptor named Chloe, was consuming him. The truth didn't explode. It seeped out, cold and ugly. I'd left a set of gallery keys at his place by mistake. Needing to retrieve some documents for a client meeting the next day, I used my spare set to let myself in after hours. The gallery was dark, lit only by the faint orange glow of the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. And there they were, in the center of the main hall, under the dramatic spotlight meant for the opening night's centerpiece. Mark and Chloe, entangled, her laughter a sharp, silver sound in the quiet space. His hands were on her, in the same possessive way they'd once been on me. I didn't make a sound. I just stood there in the shadows, my heart not breaking but shattering into a million silent, razor-sharp shards. The world didn't end. It just became a different, colder planet. I backed away slowly, my footsteps silent on the polished concrete. He never knew I was there. The confrontation the next day was a masterpiece of his deception. I sat at our kitchen island, the one we'd chosen together, and asked him, my voice dangerously calm, if he was happy. He came over, wrapped his arms around me, and told me I was his everything, that he was just tired, that he loved me. He looked me straight in the eye and lied with the effortless grace of a practiced performer. I watched him, this stranger I had built altars to, and I felt something in me shift. The heartbreak didn't vanish. It simply mutated. It hardened into something cold, patient, and sharp. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a demolition of my entire reality, and for that, a simple, screaming fight would not be sufficient. Revenge, I decided, is not a dish best served cold. It's a blueprint. It requires a solid foundation, structural integrity, and a flawless execution. I became the perfect girlfriend again. I apologized for my unfounded suspicions, blamed my own insecurity. I supported him through Chloe's exhibition, even helped him write the press release. All the while, I was quietly, meticulously, pulling the financial threads of his life apart. You see, when you've lent someone a large sum of money and helped them integrate their business into your world, you have access. You know passwords you're not supposed to remember. You understand the delicate ecosystem of their finances better than they do. Mark's gallery, the Apex, was financially a house of cards. My initial loan had been the only thing keeping it upright during a rough patch. He'd never paid me back, of course. It was ours, after all. I started by anonymously triggering a series of small, costly problems. An unfortunate error led to a premium insurance policy being canceled days before a minor water leak damaged a storage room. The resulting repairs were an out-of-pocket expense that stung. I used a prepaid, untraceable phone to tip off the fire marshal about a minor code violation he'd been ignoring, resulting in a hefty fine. He grew stressed, irritable. He started talking about needing another loan, just a small one to tide him over until the next big sale. I was sympathetic, but firm. "Money's a little tight with my new project, darling," I'd say, pouring him a glass of wine, "but we'll figure it out." The "we" was a poison. I fed him drop by drop. The pièce de résistance was the exhibition, Chloe's big show. It was supposed to be his crowning achievement, the event that put the apex on the map. He'd invested everything, his reputation, the gallery's remaining capital, his ego, into its success. I knew this. I'd been counting on it. The night of the opening was a study in tension. The gallery was packed, buzzing with the city's art elite. Canapés circulated, champagne flowed, and Mark glowed with a triumphant, nervous energy. He stood by Chloe's side, his hand possessively on the small of her back, the way he used to hold me. I moved through the crowd, a ghost at the feast, smiling, nodding, playing my part perfectly. Then, at the peak of the evening, just as the curator was about to give his introductory speech, the screens flickered. The digital displays meant to cycle through close-ups of Chloe's sculptures went black for a second, then lit up again. But they weren't showing art. They were showing text messages. His text messages. To me, to Chloe, to 3 other women I'd discovered over my months of quiet investigation. There they were, in large, undeniable font for everyone to see. The same saccharine promises he'd whispered to me, copied and pasted to Chloe. The planning of their trysts. The derogatory comments he'd made about her naive, childish art to one of the other women. The most damning one, displayed center stage, was to his friend Leo. "I'm just using her for the show. Once it's over, I'm dumping her. Sarah's the one with the long-term potential. Her financial stability is a lifesaver." A dead silence fell over the gallery. You could hear the ice melting in the champagne glasses. Then a wave of whispers, growing in intensity. Chloe's face, once radiant with pride, crumpled. She turned to Mark, her eyes wide with horror and humiliation, and spat, "You pathetic liar," before slapping him hard across the face. The sound echoed in the sudden quiet. The crowd began to turn. The buzz was no longer about the art, it was about the man, exposed as a fraud, a user, a pathetic liar. I saw it all from the back of the room, near the exit. Our eyes met across the sea of shocked faces. His expression was a chaotic mess of confusion, dawning comprehension, and finally, sheer, undiluted terror. He saw me, and he knew. He knew I had been the architect of this ruin. I hadn't just hacked his cloud account and scheduled this little display. I had systematically dismantled the fantasy he'd built, brick by brick. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply held his gaze for one long, final moment, letting him see the absolute absence of love in my eyes. Then I turned and walked out into the cool night air. The gallery folded within a month. The scandal was too great. No artist would work with him, no patron would fund him. Chloe destroyed the sculptures he'd championed in a very public, very cathartic performance piece. The loan I'd given him? I'd had him sign a personal guarantee, a document I'd casually presented as a formality, all those months ago. When he defaulted, as I knew he would, my lawyers moved in. He lost the gallery, his apartment, and what was left of his reputation. I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to another city, working some anonymous, soulless job. The lightning strike I'd once felt had finally revealed its true nature. It wasn't magic, it was a warning of the coming storm. He thought he could break my heart and walk away unscathed, but he forgot one crucial thing. An architect always knows how to bring the whole structure down.